Let me tell you something about men that most people don't understand. A man can look strong on the outside, confident, serious, emotionally unavailable even. But inside, every real man carries pressure, responsibility to provide, to protect, to succeed, to not fail. Society tells him to be tough. Don't cry. Don't complain. Don't show weakness. So what does he do? He builds emotional walls. He becomes quiet, distant, hard to reach. But the truth is, a man doesn't become soft because he's weak. A man becomes soft when he finally feels safe. And safety for a man doesn't come from control, arguments, or demands. It comes from small, intentional gestures that speak directly to his heart without attacking his pride. The first gesture is appreciation. When you genuinely acknowledge what a man does, even the little things, something changes in him. When you say, I appreciate how hard you work for us, or thank you for always trying, you are speaking to the very core of his identity. A man wants to feel useful, needed, respected for his effort. Appreciation tells him he's not invisible. And when a man feels seen, he relaxes emotionally. That tension he carries every day, it starts to melt. The second gesture is gentle touch. I'm not talking about romance. I'm talking about the quiet moments. Holding his hand for no reason, resting your head on his shoulder, touching his arm when he's stressed. Physical reassurance is powerful because men often struggle to process emotions verbally. But touch communicates peace without a single word. It tells him, you don't have to fight everything alone. And that simple message can calm storms inside him you didn't even know existed. The third gesture is belief. When a man shares his goals, dreams, or even crazy ideas, don't laugh, don't doubt, don't immediately question how it's going to work. Instead say, I believe in you. Those 4 words can change his entire mindset because the world is already full of critics. When the woman he loves becomes his safe place, instead of another judge, he gains emotional strength. And once a man feels like someone truly believes in him, he becomes more open, more affectionate, more emotionally present. The fourth gesture is respectful communication, not shouting, not embarrassing him in public, not tearing him down in anger. Disagreements will happen, but how you speak matters more than what you say. When you talk to a man with calmness and respect, even during conflict, he feels valued instead of attacked. And when a man doesn't feel attacked, he doesn't shut down, he listens, he opens up, he softens. See, love alone doesn't soften a man. Respect does. Peace does. Support does. These small gestures may seem simple, but they create emotional safety. And emotional safety is where vulnerability lives. And when a man feels safe enough to be vulnerable, that's when you finally see the soft side of him the world never gets to see. When you truly appreciate a man, you are speaking directly to the deepest part of his identity. A lot of people misunderstand men. They think men don't need reassurance, that they're naturally confident, that they don't care whether their efforts are noticed. But the truth is, a man measures much of his worth by what he provides, protects, and produces. He walks through life carrying responsibilities that he rarely talks about. He feels pressure to succeed, to solve problems, to stay strong, even when he's tired. And most of the time, nobody stops to say, I see what you're doing. Appreciation is powerful because it tells a man he is not invisible. It tells him his effort matters. When you acknowledge the long hours he works, The small repairs he fixes around the house, the way he tries to handle problems quietly so you don't have to stress, you are giving him emotional fuel. A simple thank you can go much deeper than you think. When you say, "I appreciate how hard you work for us," you are affirming his role, his sacrifice, and his intention. Even if he doesn't respond with a big emotional reaction, something shifts inside him. His guard lowers. His tension eases. Many men don't express their emotional needs because they were raised to believe that needing reassurance is weakness. Society teaches men to be tough, to be logical, to keep moving forward no matter what. So instead of asking for validation, they silently hope someone notices. When appreciation comes without him asking for it, it feels genuine. It feels safe. It feels like respect. Respect is extremely important to a man. Love makes him happy, but respect makes him feel secure. When he feels respected, he feels understood. Appreciation is one of the clearest ways to show respect because it recognizes his effort rather than criticizing what he hasn't done yet. Too often, relationships focus on what's missing instead of what's present. If he forgot one thing, that becomes the focus. If he made 10 efforts, those get overlooked. Over time, constant criticism builds walls. But consistent appreciation tears those walls down brick by brick. Appreciation also creates motivation. When a man feels valued, he naturally wants to do more. Not because he's forced to, but because he feels connected. He wants to keep earning that look of pride in your eyes. He wants to maintain that feeling of being needed and wanted. Criticism may push a man temporarily, but appreciation inspires him long term. It strengthens the emotional bond between you. It's important that appreciation is specific and sincere. Generic praise can feel empty. But when you point out something intentional, like, "I noticed you stayed up late to make sure everything was handled," it shows you paying attention. That level of awareness touches him deeply. It tells him you are not just benefiting from his efforts. You're recognizing them. Over time, consistent appreciation builds emotional safety. A man who feels appreciated is more likely to open up about his fears, his dreams, and his struggles. He becomes softer, not because he's weak, but because he no longer feels like he has to defend himself. He feels accepted for who he is and for what he brings. And when a man feels accepted, he relaxes into the relationship instead of bracing himself against it. In the end, appreciation may seem like a small gesture, but it carries tremendous weight. It reassures him that he is valued, respected, and seen. And when a man feels truly seen, his heart responds in ways that transform the entire relationship. Gentle touch is one of the most powerful emotional languages a man understands, especially because many men were never taught how to express what they feel with words. From a young age, boys are often told to toughen up, to stop crying, to handle things on their own. As they grow older, that conditioning doesn't just disappear. It becomes part of how they cope with stress, pressure, and emotional conflict. Instead of talking about what's bothering them, they withdraw. They become quiet. They try to fix everything internally without letting anyone see the struggle. This is where gentle, intentional touch becomes incredibly meaningful. It communicates comfort in a way that words sometimes cannot. A simple act like holding his hand while you sit together, placing your hand on his shoulder when he's thinking deeply, or giving him a soft hug after a long day can create a sense of peace that breaks through emotional tension. It tells him that he's not alone in whatever he's dealing with, even if he hasn't explained it out loud. Touch has a calming effect that works beneath the surface. When a man is dealing with frustration or stress, he may not want to talk immediately. In fact, pressing him or explain what's wrong can sometimes make him retreat further. But a quiet, physical gesture shows support without demanding vulnerability before he's ready. It gives him space while still offering connection. That balance is important because men often need time to process emotions privately before they can express them openly. Physical reassurance also strengthens trust. When your touch is warm and consistent, it becomes a safe signal that the relationship is stable. It reassures him that affection isn't conditional upon success, mood, or performance. Even on days when he feels like he hasn't accomplished enough, or when he's carrying silent worries, that gentle connection reminds him he is still accepted. Sometimes men carry emotional burdens they don't want to share because they fear appearing weak or incapable. They may believe that revealing doubt or sadness will change how they are perceived. A supportive touch challenges that belief without confrontation. It quietly tells him that he doesn't have to maintain a strong front every second. Over time, this kind of reassurance lowers his defenses and encourages emotional openness. Gentle touch also helps reduce misunderstandings during tense moments. In the middle of a disagreement, words can easily escalate conflict. Tone may be misinterpreted and emotions can take over. But a calm physical gesture, like touching his arm while speaking softly, can shift the energy of the conversation. It reminds both of you that the connection matters more than winning the argument. It brings the focus back to partnership instead of opposition. Consistency is what makes this gesture meaningful. Occasional affection is nice, but regular, thoughtful contact builds familiarity and comfort. It becomes something he associates with peace rather than pressure. Over time, he begins to respond more openly, not because he's being asked to, but because he feels emotionally supported. As this pattern develops, the relationship gains a sense of calm stability. He becomes less guarded, more willing to share thoughts that he might have kept hidden before. The physical reassurance you offer becomes a quiet promise that he doesn't have to face everything on his own. And in that sense of shared presence, emotional closeness grows naturally without force or expectation. Belief is one of the most transformative gifts you can give a man. When you truly believe in him, you are strengthening the foundation of his confidence in ways that the outside world often fails to do. Every man carries dreams, ambitions, and private goals that matter deeply to him. Some of them are practical and realistic. Others may sound bold, risky, or even unrealistic at first. But regardless of how they appear, they represent something important. His desire to grow, to achieve, to become more than he currently is. The world is rarely gentle with a man's dreams. There will always be critics who question his ability, people who remind him of statistics, failures, or limitations. He may face rejection, setbacks, and moments where his confidence wavers. During those times, what he needs most is not another voice listing reasons he might fail. He needs someone who sees his potential even when results haven't shown up yet. When you respond to his goals with belief instead of doubt, you create a safe emotional environment. Saying, "I believe you can do it," or "I trust your vision," carries more weight than you might realize. Those words tell him that he is not alone in his pursuit. They remind him that someone sees strength in him beyond temporary circumstances. That kind of reassurance doesn't inflate his ego. It stabilizes his determination. Belief also communicates respect. When you take his ideas seriously, instead of dismissing them, you show that you value his thinking. Even if you have concerns, approaching them with support rather than sarcasm makes a difference. Instead of saying, "That's not going to work," you could say, "How can I support you in making that happen?" This shift in tone transforms the conversation from criticism to partnership. It tells him you are on his side, not standing across from him. A man who feels believed and tends to rise to the occasion. Confidence grows when it is nurtured. Knowing that someone important to him trusts his abilities can push him to work harder, think more clearly, and act more boldly. It doesn't mean he won't experience fear or uncertainty. It means he won't feel isolated in facing them. Support becomes a steady anchor during moments of doubt. Belief also encourages emotional openness. When a man senses that he won't be judged for his aspirations, he becomes more willing to share them. He'll talk about his long-term plans, his worries about failure, and even the insecurities he tries to hide. That level of vulnerability only appears when he feels safe from ridicule. By consistently responding with encouragement, you strengthen that sense of safety. It is important that belief remains realistic and grounded. Supporting him doesn't mean ignoring challenges or pretending obstacles don't exist. It means expressing confidence in his ability to navigate those obstacles. You can acknowledge risks while still affirming his resilience. This balanced support feels authentic rather than exaggerated. Over time, your belief becomes part of his internal dialogue. When setbacks occur, he remembers your confidence in him. When he questions himself, he recalls your steady reassurance. That internal echo of support softens his defenses and deepens his emotional connection to you. He becomes more affectionate, more present, and more willing to share his world because he feels understood rather than evaluated. And in that shared belief, both of you grow stronger together. Respectful communication has the power to change the entire emotional climate of a relationship. Many people underestimate how deeply tone, timing, and delivery affect a man's willingness to open up. Words are not just sounds. They carry energy. They can either create safety or trigger defense. When a man feels attacked, embarrassed, or dismissed, his instinct is not to lean in. It is to protect himself. And protection often looks like silence, distance, or emotional shutdown. Most men are wired to solve problems. When conflict arises, they often think in terms of fixing what's wrong. But when communication turns harsh, loud, or disrespectful, the issue stops being about the problem and starts being about self-preservation. If he feels his character is being questioned instead of his behavior being discussed, he may withdraw completely. Over time, repeated negative exchanges can build emotional walls that become harder to break down. Respectful communication does not mean avoiding disagreement. It means choosing to handle disagreement with maturity and calmness. It means addressing issues without attacking identity. For example, saying, "I feel hurt when this happens," is very different from saying, "You always mess everything up." The first invites understanding, the second invites defensiveness. When you speak from your own feelings instead of accusing, you give him room to listen instead of react. Public respect is especially important. Correcting, mocking, or belittling a man in front of others can wound his pride deeply. Pride is not always about ego. It is often about dignity. When dignity is threatened, emotional walls rise quickly. But when disagreements are handled privately and with care, trust remains intact. He feels secure knowing that even during conflict, his partner protects his image rather than damaging it. Timing also plays a major role. Bringing up serious concerns when he is already overwhelmed or exhausted can lead to poor communication. Choosing a calm moment increases the chance of productive conversation. When he sees that you are intentional about when and how you communicate, he interprets it as consideration. Consideration signals respect. Respectful communication includes listening as much as speaking. Many men feel unheard because conversations sometimes become one-sided expressions of frustration. When you pause and genuinely ask for his perspective, you show that his thoughts matter. Even if you disagree, acknowledging his viewpoint softens the exchange. It reassures him that he is not simply being judged, but understood. Consistency in respectful communication builds emotional security. When he knows that conflicts won't turn into shouting matches or personal attacks, he becomes less anxious about expressing himself. He is more willing to admit mistakes because he trusts that mistakes won't define him. That trust reduces the need for emotional armor. Over time, this style of communication reshapes the relationship. Arguments become discussions rather than battles. Disagreements become opportunities for growth rather than sources of resentment. He no longer braces himself for conflict, but approaches it with openness. Feeling respected allows him to relax emotionally, and in that relaxation, his softer side naturally emerges. When expect remains steady even during tension. The bond deepens in ways that passion alone cannot achieve. Emotional safety is one of the most important elements in any relationship, yet it is often the most overlooked. Many people assume that love automatically creates closeness, but closeness only grows when both individuals feel safe enough to be their authentic selves without fear of judgment, rejection, or ridicule. For a man, emotional safety can be especially significant because he is often taught from an early age to hide vulnerability. He learns that showing fear, doubt, or sadness might be interpreted as weakness. As a result, he develops the habit of managing his emotions privately instead of sharing them openly. When emotional safety exists, that pattern begins to change. A man who feels safe knows he does not have to perform strength every moment of the day. He understands that he can admit uncertainty without losing respect. This sense of security makes it easier for him to express what he is truly thinking or feeling rather than presenting a controlled version of himself. He becomes more willing to talk about stress at work, personal insecurities, or concerns about the future because he trusts that these admissions will not be used against him later. Creating emotional safety requires consistency. It comes from responding to his honesty with patience instead of criticism. If he shares something difficult and is immediately met with sarcasm, dismissal, or frustration, he learns that openness leads to discomfort. But when his honesty is met with understanding, he learns that sharing leads to connection. Over time, this repeated experience teaches him that vulnerability does not have to result in embarrassment or conflict. Trust grows in this environment when he believes that his thoughts and emotions will be received Respectfully, he is less likely to shoot. T down during challenging conversations. Instead of avoiding difficult topics, he becomes more open to addressing them. This openness can strengthen communication and reduce misunderstandings. He begins to see the relationship as a partnership where both people are working through life's challenges together, rather than standing on opposite sides. Emotional safety also encourages accountability. When a man does not feel threatened by the possibility of harsh judgment, he is more likely to admit mistakes. Defensiveness often arises from fear of being attacked. Remove that fear, and honesty becomes easier. He can acknowledge where he went wrong without feeling like his entire character is being questioned. This leads to healthier problem solving and deeper mutual respect. Supportive reactions play a key role in maintaining this safety. When he talks about failure or disappointment, offering empathy instead of immediate solutions shows that his emotions are valid. Sometimes he may not need advice. He may only need reassurance that his feelings are understood. Listening attentively without interrupting or minimizing his experience communicates that what he shares matters. As emotional safety becomes a steady presence, the relationship begins to feel like a refuge from external pressures. He may still face challenges in the outside world, but within the relationship, he experiences acceptance. This acceptance reduces emotional tension and encourages authenticity. He no longer feels compelled to hide parts of himself to maintain approval. Gradually, this environment allows vulnerability to grow naturally. He may share aspirations he once kept private or speak openly about worries he previously buried. Emotional safety transforms guarded silence into meaningful dialogue. In that space of acceptance, deeper emotional intimacy develops without force, and connection becomes rooted in genuine understanding rather than surface level interaction.